Welcome to LEAPCAST. I'm your host, Dr. George James. LEAP stands for Leaders, Entertainers, Athletes, and Performers. And I'm on a journey to connect with high achievers and highlight their unexamined human moments. Tune in to learn how these high-achieving LEAP individuals were able to reach their greatest potential, face their most difficult challenges, and embrace the human moments that helped them along the way. If you want to get the episode highlights directly in your email, then head to theleapcast.com right now to subscribe. Welcome again, everybody. This is Dr. George James, and this is LEAPCAST, where we talk to leaders, entertainers, athletes, and performers. Today, I have the honor of talking to another great friend, Cherri Gregg, that I have known for some time now. Usually, the roles have been reversed. I've been her guest in lots of ways, but I'm glad that she can be my guest today. So, Cherri, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you. It's unusual to be in this position,
I know it
but
is, and I love it.
I did a little woosah today, just to relax or what have you.
She's used to doing all the great, asking all the great questions and getting people to just share, and I'm like, oh, now it's my turn. No, but really, this is just a great opportunity, and how I like to start off is what we call a leap story. And you've done amazing things in your career. You continue to do great things, but sometimes we don't know like how you came up or what you had to do or what was your journey. And so we'd love to just maybe start there. Go back as early as you can to just talk about you and your early passions or desires or goals even. And let's start there. Tell us your leap story.
Sure. Well, I'm from Washington, D.C. Was born in D.C., raised in kind of D.C., Maryland era. My mom had me when she was 19 years old. She had got married at 17.
Wow.
So that was not unusual in the mid to late 70s, from what I hear now. But I had two young parents. My dad was 21 when
Wow.
I was born, and maybe 23. I don't know. They're like 4 years apart. So born to very young parents. Both of my parents had dropped out of high school
Oh,
because of circumstances. My dad had been a football superstar at his high
really?
school in Virginia. Actually, had been recruited from several universities, but kind of freaked out and didn't finish. And then my
Wow.
mom, they had a big fire at the house, and so my mom ended up homeless. My grandmother was hospitalized,
Wow.
so she kind of like fell between the cracks because they're both the youngest of nine. Can you
Wait,
believe
wait, wait,
that?
wait, wait. They're both the
They're
youngest
both
of
the
nine?
youngest of nine. Yes.
Wow.
So they both kind of like fell between the cracks and kind of clung to each other, so to speak, and ended up, getting married very young. My dad was 21. My mom was like 17 when they got married. 2 years later, I came along. A couple years after that, my brother came along, my brother Ray, and they were just trying to navigate this world. They ended up going back to school, getting education, to kind of like, vocational school. And that's kind of how we were raised
Okay.
throughout the 80s, living in DC, just kind of like moving around a lot with young parents, just trying to navigate, trying to educate themselves. And I think a point in my life that I think is pretty significant is my parents splitting up when I was 10.
Okay.
My brother was 8 and my youngest brother was 2. And I feel like that was a pivotal moment in my life and everything sort of changed for us. Because we were doing okay. But when that happened, I feel like we kind of descended into like a level of poverty in some ways, because
Mm-hmm.
you go from like two income household to one income household. My dad had some substance abuse issues just because of all the I guess the pressure of trying to raise children,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to work in a society that doesn't want to see you succeed and all these things. So my mom was left on her own. And I think that was a defining moment for me and my brothers. I became like the person who cooked, the person who made sure everybody did their
Yeah.
homework,
Yeah.
and all of this
The other
stuff.
parent.
Yeah, the other parent. And also, I think a couple years later it became my goal to get out of it. Like to be like, yo,
Right. I'm out.
I gotta get out. Yo, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is the moment when I just kind of like became like this person who just decided to work really hard.
Oh,
I was a straight A student. I was a valedictorian in my eighth grade class.
nice.
I went to high school, was top of my class, like straight A's every semester. I played volleyball, I played basketball. And I was in the visual and performing arts for television production. So I
Okay.
hosted a show in high school called The Rampage. I
Nice.
also,
Let's bring it back.
yeah, like I used to produce the little reel, like the highlight reels for some of the basketball players because my
Uh-huh.
boyfriend was a basketball player. Like I was, we were considered the cutest couple, and all this. So I was like semi popular in high school, but not
Semi
like
in
a cool
quotations. We know what
kid.
that means.
Yeah, but I was all about getting out, and I got
I
a
hear.
full scholarship to go to
Nice.
Boston University, and I was like, I'm going far, like I'm out, and and I went to BU, and that was another thing. I didn't realize how hard it would be,
Hmm.
being away from my family.
And that's a
It's
big. That's a. I mean, I'm gonna go back to some early stuff, but that's a big shift, right? You talk about DC, Chocolate City to BU.
Yeah, I went. My school was 84% black, like my high school, Suitland High School. What's up with the Rams? And I had a very small but like tight knit family. My aunt lived next door. Like we was like, it was like everybody was raising us. My cousins lived next door. Like so, I went from like my grandma. We stayed with my grandma a lot.
Mm.
So like I went from like this close knit family, my brother being my best friend, um, to like being so far away. And I went to BU sight unseen,
Oh
like
wow.
because my mom could not afford to send me to
Yeah.
visit the school. I didn't do like a tour,
Hmm.
like I legit like the first time I saw Boston University was when my mom took me up on the train for freshman week,
And
and
it's
she
not
took
like
me.
now, right, where people can even do virtual tours. It was
Oh
a time
no,
where like, I don't know what this is. I don't know where it is. We're just
this was
gonna.
like the mid 90s. This was like, yo, wasn't no. I mean, I got my first email like in '96.
Yeah.
When I was first
Yeah.
started school or whatever. So it was like a different world.
Yeah.
And it was hard, like to the point where like I don't even remember
Hmm.
post sophomore year. Like the from sophomore year to senior year is a blur.
Yeah.
Because I worked three jobs. There was a period when my brother went to college. He went to Frostburg State. He was playing football there, and my mom just could not by
Hmm.
herself afford to support two kids in college on one salary. My mom was like a bookkeeper at a high school. And so there came a point where like I legit did not have they locked me out the dorm
Wow.
at BU, and I had no place to stay. So that was like my sophomore year right after Christmas break, and I consider that to be the second defining moment of my life because and I was just talking to my brother about this just the other day. One of my mentors has always said there's two kinds of people. And there's the kind of people when they're stressed, they focus. And there's the other kind of people when they're stressed, they implode.
Yeah.
And that was a moment when I realized I'm a focus person.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home and I told my mom how depressed I didn't want to go back. She said, no, you will not drop out. You were a straight A student. You will finish. So I went back, never complained again, started cleaning houses on the weekends. I worked at a copy center overnight and I sold fur coats after class. And
I
I still made Dean's List.
that is just incredible, and I think you're saying a lot that really relates to so many people.
Yeah.
Especially, I was having a conversation not that long ago with another guest about what it means to be first generational student. Right, that was the same for me. What it means also to come from parents where they struggle, they're good people, they work hard, but they just didn't have enough money. And the point where you realize your parents don't have enough money to, or they're struggling, and it sounds like for you, the point where you realize that the only way I'm going to figure this out is if I figure this out, is if I literally put it on my back and find some solutions. But I think you dropped a gem where like people who are stressed either implode or they focus. And that can literally define what happens next and throughout your life, the choices you make. And it sounds like for you, that moment of focus really carried you through the rest of college.
That changed my life. Like
Wow.
that I did not know. And I was telling my brother this, and my brother didn't even know that I didn't have a place to stay. Like I didn't tell nobody.
Yeah.
I just like legit said, how much money do I need to get out of this?
Yeah.
And I'm not a jump on the pole type chick. Like,
Right.
like I
You
could
gonna
have
find
jumped on
me
the
that way.
pole.
Right.
I was like, because I was raised Catholic. I was a
Right.
church girl growing up. So like jumping on the pole, I was
Yeah, right.
like,
Look,
I
I
think
know some
about it
people
now.
that
I was
that was
like,
an
girl,
option
you
for
could
them.
have just.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, you could have twerked your way out of this.
No,
But
no.
it wasn't part of my who I was. Like
Mama ain't gonna hear
part
that.
like I had always worked. I babysat when I was 12.
Wow.
I was top employee at a shoe store. I worked for the school board in the summers. So like I always had a job. So I just said, you know what, we about to grind.
Yeah.
And I just ever since then I never went back home. I like literally I just stayed away and I just worked.
Wow.
And I was like, I just grinded like legit 3 jobs and made Dean's List. Could
I
not
mean,
intern because I couldn't afford it.
right. I mean, that's 4 jobs, right? Between school and the other stuff. And
Yeah.
once again, like sometimes people don't recognize, when they see you now, or when they see you doing multiple things, right? Like where you built those skills, right? Like no, this is like I've been doing this from day one, right? Like I know how to handle pressure and stress and how to focus. But I want to go back. When you mentioned about your parents moving around and then the split, when did you realize that that had some impact on you? Like, so I'll share for me, like I recognize my parents they didn't finish high school. My mom didn't get her GED. She worked really hard. And my parents would go, in particular, my dad would go back and forth between the US and Jamaica. So there would be months I wouldn't see him. And it didn't hit me until later in life what that meant for me to not have him around in my life. For he was there for big moments, right? Graduations and so forth. But like other moments, right? Where it'd be like, oh, he's not here. And how that was a void at times for me, which then later led to me seeking out mentors, in particular men. And so I'm wondering, like for you, when that split happened with your parents, when did you recognize that had some impact on you?
I think years later, because in my choice in relationships, and I'll say this because when my mom went through 3 years of deep depression when my dad and her broke up, and that's why I had to step up and cook and do all that stuff because
Yeah.
my mom could literally only work and go to bed like 3 years. And she had a little kid to take care of, right? But then 3 years later, she like woke up. But by then, I was a fully like, I was a
Right.
teenager and I
Right.
was like in charge of my life because
Yeah.
I was forced to grow up. But I remember making a decision, like I was like, I will never be in a relationship
Mm.
where I could ever be this devastated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom and my mom met my dad when she was 13 years old.
Yeah.
So like that was the only, and they're back together. Fast forward, they got back together
I
when
love
I
it.
was in law school. I called the house one day. My dad answered. I said,
What you doing there?
"Did I call the wrong number? Like, what's going on over there?" Well, I'm helping your mama. So they back together. Fast forward, they've been back together for some years now, and they
Wow.
are happy as clams. So,
Wow.
but at the time, like I said to myself, like I ain't never gonna be in a relationship where some man could walk out on me, leave me with 3 kids,
Mm.
and wreck my entire life.
Mm. Yeah.
Like wreck it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how I viewed it. I
Of course.
and
You're
I think
depressed.
about it and I kind of like wanted to slap my mom. Like I say this in hindsight because I was a young and I was just
Yeah.
angry. I was like,
Yeah.
why are you so like, first of all, like he need to come back. And second of all, why is this all on me? And I just kind of was like this anger.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I could do was like get to work,
Yeah.
you know? And so I definitely feel like for years I would choose people that I thought were nothing that would never ever do this to me,
Mm.
which was bad because you end up in these relationships where the only reason why you're with them is because you feel safe there and
Yeah.
you feel like you have some power in that relationship when that's not good for you and that's not good from them. I've
Yeah.
since grown out of that, recognized and did a lot of therapy, but it is it was watching my mom shatter and then piece her life back together, definitely, and my dad not being around. And I
Hmm.
also think with my dad, that put something in me because I used to call my dad around. I called all the houses to try to find my dad.
Right.
I'd be like, Daddy, we supposed to be getting together. Like I
Right.
called
Where
my
you at?
uncles, my aunts, my grandmother, like, and I always felt like I had to do a whole lot to get his attention,
Yeah.
for him to show up and be where he was supposed to be at the time he was supposed to be. And so I think it made me feel like in order to uh get love from someone like my father, like I had to stand on my head and like get straight
Mm.
A's and like
Yeah.
look cute and do all of these
Be
things
perfect, right?
to make it work.
Yeah.
And and it because it wasn't just enough that I was his daughter. I looked just like the man, and all of that is like it's like it wasn't enough for me to just be
Mm.
me, for you to do what you're supposed to do as my dad. I had to go through all this other stuff to get you to show up. But if I called and did all that stuff, he'd show up, I guess. Like, damn, the girl done found me. I guess I
Hmm.
gotta go over there.
Man, she
Whereas
found me again.
my brothers wouldn't do all that.
Yeah.
And they just had another level of anger. I would just jump through hoops.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a long
No, I'm
tangent.
like, yeah, look, Cherry, you just hit on something that I think is a whole nother conversation about relationships, right?
Yeah.
This thought about how does our early experiences, the models, the changes, how does that impact us? Because I've heard what you just said a number of times of where people make a choice of who they select as a partner because of what they saw or experienced.
Hmm.
And on some level, it's to protect us from hurt. Because I mean, who wants to go through that again? And we do it, but then in trying to like double down on making sure that we don't get hurt, we cause some other kind of situation that we didn't have to deal with. And that is not that we're most of us are not usually aware that that's what we're doing, and it's and sometimes never figure it out. I know people, they go their whole life, they never realize that that's what they were doing. So the fact that you know it and work through that is amazing. and
Thousands
and
of
drop that.
dollars in therapy, Dr. Dan.
Hey, look, that's a shout out to therapy right there. That's why we do what we do.
In years. I've been in therapy. I was in weekly therapy for 6 years to deal
Hey,
with my stuff. And I finally I fully am a healed whole person, but and I'm able to even articulate it to you.
and I appreciate
And
that.
so yeah, so that was defining moments. But
Yeah.
I mean, but I always wanted to be a journalist. I'll tell you that.
I mean, and I could tell right from not only your hard work, but your ability to navigate the challenges and to tell stories, right?
Yeah.
and and the last thing I'll say with all of this is that with what you experienced and how you went through it, and even working through your own healing, it's so important that we think about these things, and we work on ourselves, and we figure out what we need to do, because it can cause impact. But it sounds like you found a way to just continue to push through. The other thing I was thinking about is some of the things that we don't talk about a lot is how sometimes as children we end up having to take care of our family early,
Mhm.
right? Like we don't always talk about how, like, yeah, as the oldest I had to do this or that because my parent was sick, or my parent was sad or depressed, or that there was just a need in the family. And I think, like, you highlighted that, like, yes, on top of school I also was doing this. So, shout out to all the young adults out there who are doing stuff for their family and sometimes don't get recognized for how much they're working.
And people don't realize, especially with single moms, if they have a child that they grew up with, and I was the child that made my mom a mom,
Hmm.
and I was also a girl, and very much my grandmother was like my person. Like she was my first voice coach, having me read in church and all this stuff. But like I'm not angry at my mom now. I think I was angry then, me and
Hmm.
my mom are like, my mom is like an amazing human being.
That's awesome.
And she protected us like no one, like I grew up, thank God, no one did anything to me. My mom didn't date. She refused to bring men around me. She said, I have this daughter
Yes.
who, she meets somebody and they look at me. And she was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Absolutely not. And I was always tall. I'm 5'11". So imagine, me at 11. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've been 5'11" since I was 13.
Wow.
And my mom used to make me wear busted clothes. She would not even want to get your makeup. She
Right.
was like, oh
No.
no, honey. So my mom, I gotta shout her out and just say how much she protected me
Nice.
despite her own
Yeah.
pressures, and she loved us with. I knew I was loved,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so, and I get all teary eyed thinking about it. But she was a good mom, but she went through some ish
Yeah.
getting out of that
Yeah.
relationship. She popped back up 3 years after
Right.
the
Right. She's
fall.
like, all
She
right,
popped
I'm done.
up the
It's like
and was
time
mom
over.
again.
Well, yeah.
But
Shout
she
out
was
to
in
mom.
it.
I
She
mean
was in it
that's
for 3 years.
that sounds
Yeah,
incredible. Like
yeah.
and once again, sometimes we don't, as a child, we don't fully know the journey of our parents and what they're going
Hmm.
through. Like it is just now in my 40s that I am starting to recognize all that my parents had to do or go through or figure out, or the decisions from the parent side of it, like, or the adult side of it. I'm like, yo, I see it now in a way that I didn't. I went to the grocery store the other day and I spent like a good amount of money. I'm like, man, I can only imagine when you said a household of nine, like,
Oh my
what?
God.
That grocery bill, and then you may or may not have had money. Trying to figure out how to feed a house is a big responsibility that sometimes we just don't even pay attention to that. So definitely shout
And
out
my
to mom.
mom she did not like government assistance.
Mm,
My mom worked.
yeah.
She worked at J.C. Penney. She worked at the school. That was her main job. And she sold Avon. Get
See.
so soft, paid for my books in college. Okay.
That's right. That's look. Mom found a way,
She
and
did.
so I hear how all this stuff like started to build character, right? Build like who you are and how you went about things, and so in finishing BU, like what was the next phase for you in your life after BU?
My dream was always to be a journalist, but after experiencing the hardship and having to work 3 jobs in college, I decided to go to law school.
Okay.
And I will say Boston was so racist. um, and working in a I worked off of Beacon Street,
Okay.
and which is a very elite, rich section of Boston.
Okay.
A lot of old money, and I worked selling fur coats.
Okay.
So I worked with a lot of very wealthy people, celebrities from Boston, and just the microaggressions that I experienced working in this parlor, which paid a like pretty good money at a
Mm-hmm.
time when minimum wage was like 5.25. I was making
Wow.
$8 at one point and $14 by the time I left an
Nice.
hour, which was a lot of money
Yeah. Some
then.
people want $14 right
Oh
now.
yeah, oh yeah. I was paid, and I
Yeah.
would get I would also get like a commission. So it
Okay.
was good money to help me pay my portion of whatever I had to pay being at Boston University. So I took a lot from, and I just decided I did not want to have to work this hard
Mm.
anymore. And so I
Mm.
went to law school at Howard, and I went to a
Okay.
HBCU because I was tired of being the only
I was
one in
about
the
to say,
class.
was that on purpose?
That was exactly on purpose. I was like, I can't deal with these white. And don't get me wrong, BU taught me how to identify good, different kinds of white folks and how to
Yes.
be friends with
Yes.
people of different races. Something that I didn't learn growing up because I lived in a Black environment. It also taught me I could be 100% myself and still
Nice.
be successful in a white environment under their standards because I was still on Dean's List, still held my scholarship, all that stuff. But I needed to be Black again. Went to Howard, best 3 years of my life. People I met at Howard are still my friends now.
Okay.
And it just changed my life. And it made me like become like, I would say, a social engineer
Mm.
and to pay attention, know my history, That we had to watch Eyes on the Prize, Georgia. Eyes on the Prize before we even started school. Okay. They was
Yes.
like, you need to know your history.
Yes.
And so I decided I was going to be a lawyer, make a ton of money, and I got a great job in Atlanta, working, making six figures at this law firm. I was 25 years old, bought me my
Nice.
house. I was living my life. And I was working in intellectual property, which to me
Okay.
was news adjacent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there was always this pull inside of my spirit, and I just
Mm,
was like, yo, I need to figure out a way to become a journalist.
mm,
So I started dating this guy that I was good friends with in law school. And he was one of the few people who always believed in my dream.
okay.
We started dating. We ended up getting married, and I moved to Philadelphia. And he was so supportive of me. And he told me to quit the law and pursue it. And I didn't look back, and something about creeping up on 30, I was like, yo, if I need to do this.
Yeah.
It's something about those decades,
Yeah.
in your life. And so I decided to jump, and I enrolled in school at Temple University to get my master's in journalism, and got a job right away. Everything just kind of worked out. And it was just like, all of the things that I wanted to do from the time I was like a little girl, running around with a hairbrush saying, on the record, on the record, on the record, started to unfold. This all, and I had thought maybe it would never happen.
Wow.
But then everything started to happen. I started working at KYW. CBS3 asked me to start doing reports for them. Next thing you know, I'm CBS3, I'm working Sunday mornings doing live TV and winning all these awards. And it seemed like it was me, but not really me. It
Yeah.
just seemed like God had like, this was what the path I was supposed to be on or something.
And of course, right? Like it was there from the beginning. You felt it inside, and obstacles here and there, challenges here and there, decisions, but you found your way back, right? And I think one, that's incredible that you were able to find your way back. But I want to talk about that part where you were in practicing lawyer, making money,
Yes.
but still knew that that wasn't the dream, right? The dream on some level was to make money, right? In a way, probably because you didn't always have it, and that probably felt good, but that wasn't, these are my words, the purpose, right? And how did you, like, I'm wondering, day to day, how did you navigate that or deal with that pull or that tug that, like, this is not it?
Well, it's funny because when I started practicing law, first of all, I was kind of hood, you know, all my clothes was too tight, like panty lines. It was just, I was kind of tacky. I ain't even gonna lie, because no one had like sat me
Right.
down and said, okay, like finishing school, like this is how you supposed to look. So there was a couple of Black women lawyers who kind of like pulled me to the side and was like, yo, don't ever wear that outfit again.
At
Like,
least they said something though,
yeah,
right?
they said something, and they like took my work and just helped me refine. They were like, "You have talent, sis. Like, we just need to like clean you up and like fix you up." And one of the things that they told me was, "Be careful of the golden handcuffs." I was like,
Hmm.
"Golden handcuffs?" It was like, "Look, yo,
Yes.
be careful of the golden handcuffs. Do
Yes.
not buy a BMW. Do not, lean in and start like spending all your money buying Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci and like, like don't get unless this is
Hmm.
it. And even if this is it, this place, these spaces, they give you all the sugar to lock you up,
Yeah.
and then they suck the life out of you slowly but surely. So beware
Hmm.
of the golden handcuffs. So this is why they like helping me like refine my work, my look, like refine myself, my speech. This just fit into the culture of
Yeah.
corporate America and of the more elite systems. Um, all of these things are also telling me it's a trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I refused to get trapped. So I bought me a Nissan Pathfinder, paid that bad boy off. Like
Nice.
I was like double paying my student
Yes.
loans. I started selling Mary Kay on the side. Like I was like, if these people get crazy and try to get rid of me,
I got options.
I'm got options. Exactly. Like so,
Right.
and that mentality actually, because I didn't have a lot of debt. I didn't,
Nice.
I wasn't like a flashy person. Everybody knows I'm not about name brands. Like I was never, bundles and all this kind of like you see a lot of women walking around and they got these
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 sunglasses. So that was never, I'm like very like humble in my outfits. I do like my nails and I do like an expensive bag and I do like my weave, but
It's
at the
okay.
same
You gotta have
time,
some things you like, right?
yes, yeah, I will scale it back, if I need to, but I just never
Mm,
bought into that. And that gave me freedom. And
nice.
I also had full scholarship to undergrad and I did all that work. So I didn't have tons of student loans. Um,
That's a
I
big
did
deal.
have, yeah, and I had partial scholarship to law school. So I did have student loans, but it wasn't like as bad as it could be considering the amount of education I have. And so that gave me the freedom to be able to, I wasn't like handcuffed.
Yeah. No,
And I think a lot of people, a lot of young folk, they get that sugar
Mhm.
and and they in a cage.
Yeah.
It's like they give you the sugar and they lock you in and you can't leave because you have this mortgage and all this debt and
You're
student
stuck.
loans and
You don't have the
so yeah.
freedom to pivot or to go after the dream that like you were able to. And I think like one, shout out to those women who pulled you aside and was willing to like help and support you, because we know that sometimes even the people we work with, regardless of race, regardless of background, sometimes they could just hate on you. Sometimes they could just not, or they know but they're not willing to share or open up, and for whatever set of reasons they were willing to do that. And then when we talk about being black in corporate America, that's a whole nother experience, right? And sometimes people don't tell you or help you understand where to step, what to do, what to say, or how to be, and to have some people to guide you like that is
I was
is
blessed.
instrumental.
I was blessed. And I will say I had a couple of white male mentors. Shout out to the white guys who actually
I've had
see
some
people
too.
of color who like take you under their wing and they not trying to date. And there's some anti-race because everybody be like have been dragging white men for a long time.
Hmm.
But I will tell you some of my most formidable, impactful mentors have been white men who love
Same.
me. I know they love me because
Same.
they hooked me up and protected me when I could have been thrown out the window
Yeah.
and dismembered.
Yeah.
And they put their reputations on the line for me. So this is before
Right.
all of this George
Yeah.
Floyd. This is back in the day.
Yeah.
So I got a shout out to, and they know who they are, who have given me promotions.
Yeah.
Before it was like sexy, before it was like the thing to do. They just legit saw who I
They
was
just looked
and
out. Yeah.
and hooked the sister up. They did. They hooked me up.
I think that's great. And same here, like I have I had and still have those white mentors, male white men and women who have just been there in my corner that I know care deeply about me and my
Yes.
well-being. That's it. Right,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
then
my
ends up
mama, like,
right.
it was cool, like cool.
Right.
And I'm like, see, that's the part that, in all this wokeness, I just hope we don't, forget that a
Yeah.
lot of us got where we are because somebody opened that door and they
Yeah.
didn't necessarily look like us.
No.
And
Oftentimes.
so I'm grateful.
And
Yeah.
they took those chances or those opportunities, or they just saw that like, hey, I got in because somebody opened the door for me and I'm willing to open the door for somebody else. And what's crazy, and I know you've done this, where now that we're at certain places, we're opening doors for people who don't look like us too, as well as people who look like
Exactly. And
us.
I make sure that I'm cool with everybody because, like, I just value hard work and I
Yes,
worked hard. Like,
we
and they
know.
couldn't say I didn't work hard and
Right.
didn't try. So I think that was another reason that, because when I left my firm in Atlanta, like my mentor Dave, he threw me a friggin' party.
Wow.
Like like gave me a nice gift. Like
Nice.
he threw me a like that's how close we had gotten over the 4.5 years I was there.
That's
And
just love.
I just think about him every once in a while, and I'm like, there's certain people, even in journalism, that
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for this person, like I don't know if I would have been able to do what I've done. So I'm grateful for those folks.
And so shout out to those people, and and once again, I love how you highlight the golden handcuff, because once again, we don't always talk about this, because especially when you're at a place where you're chasing a dream, chasing
And you grew up
something,
broke.
and you grew up broke, right? And you saw other people around you struggle. The goal sometimes is, let me get my coins, right? Let me get to this spot where I have some money, and then we don't always say it. Let me flex, right? Let me show other people that I've made it, I've arrived. But in that whole pattern, you're actually getting yourself stuck and getting into that handcuff, because now you got to work. And then when they say, well, we need you for an extra 20 hours, or we need you to do more, and you're like, oh, what choice do you have, because you want that paycheck. And it's, especially in this day and age, with some of what we're talking about with people and work and how they show up, it is those dynamics of, yes, we should work hard, so we're not talking about not working hard. Yes,
Mm.
you should show up, but it's another thing when you feel like you don't have an option or a choice, and you're handcuffed to it.
Yeah. And the real flex is freedom. The real flex is being able to pivot. The real value now isn't, a BMW and all these cars. Don't get me wrong. I want to buy a Tesla. That's like on my, like, I want to buy one of these. I want an
Right.
EV. That's my next
Right.
purchase.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, if the flex is because I didn't do that, like I can leave if I want, or I can do this if I want, or no one has me trapped. I don't have to take
Yeah.
toxicity
Yes.
uh in order to survive. But I don't I think a lot of people walk into the trap, especially if you grew up with not a lot and
Mm-hmm.
you see that those checks coming every month and you could pay all your bills and you still got $2,000 to save. You know what I'm saying? Like that feels good. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like all my bills is paid. I'm still paid.
Right.
It felt so good to for once in my life to be able to help.
Yeah.
For once in my life to have all my bills paid, like and not owe nobody nothing.
To
You
like
know?
to decide if you want to help other people, right? Like, you don't have to feel like you're like, if I help somebody, it's gonna hurt me, right? That's
Yes.
a dangerous place to be, where, like, you might come up in a certain place where, yeah, maybe other people around you need help or support, or you want to be able to look out. Maybe you want to be able to mentor. You have that freedom. And I really love what you say, that freedom is the flex, right? That ability to know that I have options, I have freedom, and I'm a hard worker, and I'm smart. So you know what? I have options now. So with
Yeah,
that, you you got to the place where you had the freedom, you had the encouragement, you had the support, but you still had to take the leap.
I
Like,
did.
you still had to jump. How did you do that? How did you say, with all, because people get encouragement, people get support, people have the freedom, but they don't jump, they don't leap. What allowed you to do it?
Well, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. Walked across the, and I mean, I'm telling you the truth. I
Yes.
walked across the daggone cockholes. And
Yes.
because I'm a Capricorn and I like security and I
Yeah.
like money. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like being broke.
Mm.
Okay. I've always had stacks because from the time I was little, I would save every
Yes.
dime.
Yes.
So I had to convince myself, and then I hired a career coach because I was making that big money at the
Mm-hmm.
firm.
Mm-hmm.
And I for 2 years I did a plan,
Nice.
and then I executed the plan.
Okay.
And I remember the day I had written my resignation letter, and I had it in my desk at work at the big firm I was at in Philly, and I just kept going down to the manager partner's office with it, and then the secretary was like, "He in there," and I'm like, I sneak back to my office. I did it like over the course of 3 weeks, and I had a drop dead deadline of like
Okay.
November 30th.
Okay.
And I remember I did it 2 days before the deadline. And
Mm.
the guy who I told laughed at me. He was like, why would you do that? And it was 2010.
Mm.
Why would you do that? And I'm like, because this is my dream. I'm gonna be a broadcast journalist. And he was like, you're crazy. You're making all this. Why would you do that? And so then I felt like it gave me like a motivation. His
Watch me
like
work.
like ridiculing me like that, like
Mm-hmm.
And it made me double think. And then I doubled down. And
Wow.
I was like, oh, hell no, I'm about to kill this mug. So I just leaned in. And it's like, it came a moment where I was just like, yo, there is no turning the F back
Mm-hmm.
down.
Yeah.
And it just, I was like, this is going to work. And when I tell you that I bought like a camera, I built a studio at my house, like, everything. And I started freelancing. I was horrible. I stay in that studio doing stuff for hours and it would just be bad. And I remember like I got an internship at Channel 10. And I remember like they saw me out there being for real. Like, and I remember people would be like, yo, are you for real, sis? Because this isn't good. And people started helping me.
Nice.
Like, they were like,
There it is again.
now
Here
quit
comes the
her
people.
job. She look crazy as hell. Like, all right, sis, let me direct you to somebody who can assist. And so, like, literally, it was like angels came out the woodwork and like assisted me, just like those women who
Mm-hmm.
helped clean me up and told
Mm-hmm.
me, don't wear your hair like that. Don't say this. Don't get hooked. It was like literally God sent these people who helped me. And I remember like I got my job at KYW because this guy who used to be a news at some of these stations, he saw me. He's like, yo, tell me your story. What you here?
Mm-hmm.
And like he literally connected me with another person. And so it's like all of those little things. I feel like when you're on the path and when you have the courage and you make the act of faith and you leap, that is when, God steps in and
Yeah.
assists you. I mean, because I didn't know how I was going to make it. And within a year of me quitting, I was on air.
I love that. And you know what's so powerful about that is sometimes we don't get the assistance until we leap, right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't like it's not like some people were helping you out of how to get better because you weren't even on the path yet. It was when you were there and you were working hard, which has been like your through line and being like committed to the task that now people are showing up and helping to refine and give and wanting to hear your story and then putting you on, which is so awesome, that has been your experience. And I think it's just so powerful that I'm not saying that everybody needs to just pivot and leap to wherever the thing is that you need to do, but sometimes you have to have a plan, which you did. You need to work the plan, you need to be ready, and you need to be okay with the haters, right? People who don't see your
Oh, everybody
vision.
told me I was crazy. But they laughed and told me I was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and now that it worked out, they be like, you were so.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're always going to be someone, but I knew you could do it. That wasn't what you were saying.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you took that leap and you were able to push forward. I want to like fast forward a bit because you've been able to accomplish a lot, right? You took that leap. You've won awards. You've been the president of Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. You've done, and now, right? You're working at WHYY. And so tell me about that part, like the success in taking the leap. How's that been for you?
It's been a blessing. I mean, there were sacrifices that I had to make. And it wasn't all perfect. It wasn't all easy. And it's almost like every time I thought I was good, it's like something would slap me back down. And so I've learned to just stay humble.
Yes. Yes.
Never think you that great, but know that on the worst day, it's not as bad as it seems. And so I just kind of just take it all in stride. And and I kind of like had to recalibrate a couple years ago because I realized I had put my head down and then made all these sacrifices and was so focused on this, amorphous goal that I didn't realize I needed to build a life. Like, that I needed to make sure that, that I wasn't just so in alignment with this work that
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about who I was and where I came from.
Yeah.
And I couldn't keep saying no to people that I needed to be saying yes to. So this next phase is me sort of doing the work that I love, building the life, and also having an impact on a different level. To not just be trying to do stories, but to also influence narratives and
Nice.
to have a broader impact. And so I'm part of a new nonprofit, the Law and Justice Journalism Project, where we
Nice.
help train journalists to cover crime, courts, and justice. in a more equitable and fair way, with more sensitivity. That's been my area
Nice.
coverage for the past decade plus that I've been on air, and so I want others to do the work
Hmm.
too, and so that's part of my mission. And I went through a divorce, and I will say that sometimes my like hard work and some of my relationship choices based on trauma led to that.
Mm.
But I've since recovered and in a very healthy,
You popped
wonderful.
up like your mom. Three
Yeah, I
years.
popped
I'm
back
good.
up. I'm in a wonderful, healthy, loving,
Nice.
committed situation now.
Great.
And things are working out. And I'm remembering to build a life. Moved to Wilmington, Delaware,
Look at
where
you.
I can have a life that's separate from work.
Yeah.
But I still work hard, but I still live hard. And I think, that's part of the evolution.
I appreciate you sharing how sometimes that we can have our head down towards a goal, and there's some parts of our other parts of our life can be underdeveloped, right? That we're not working on that areas, and there could be some collateral damage as a result of that, and that we have to make sense of that. We have to come to terms with that. We have to figure that out. And it sounds like you have been on that journey and have been able to recover and to heal, uh, while you were going after the goal, while you were working hard. And that's a lot of us, right? There's a lot of people where it's something, right? It could be your health, it could be your family, it could be your relationships, it could be your your bank account, it could be other things where there's collateral damage, and we have to kind of reckon
Yeah.
with that.
You have to deal with yourself because at the end of the day, you can quit jobs, you can move, you can lose weight, get a tummy tuck, whatever, and then you still got to deal with you.
Yeah.
So the goal is, how do you like look yourself in the eye? Like, are you working hard just to avoid something? Can
Mm-hmm.
you be silent and in your own space, in your own body, in your own thoughts, and be okay? And that's the kind of person I want to be. And I was like, I want to be the type of person who, is intentional about my work, is intentional about impact, is loving, and says yes to the people who I love the most, and
Nice.
not saying no to them all the time for some other goal.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, achieving the goals that and the things that I know I was put on this earth to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like this full.
Yeah.
I'm working really hard to become a full
Yes.
person,
And
well
there's room for that.
adjusted, happy human being. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's room for that. So, last few questions that I like to end with. One, I think you already started, is what are you working on now? And you mentioned, this new initiative, and maybe say a little bit more about that, or if there's anything else that you're working on now. I'll be really curious about that.
Yeah, well, right now, something I'm pouring a lot of my spirit and soul into is the Law and Justice Journalism Project. It's an effort that we were able to get funded, and we
Nice.
are working to, we've created a fellowship program where we're recruiting early to mid career journalists who we will train to do better storytelling, better investigations, and better coverage of law, justice, um, courts, and of course crime, because crime narratives
Yeah.
influence communities of color so much, and
Nice.
policies that affect communities of
Hmm.
color. So we're working on that. I also am very proud of the Good Souls Project. It's an effort at WHYY to highlight those who are
Yeah.
trying to make a positive change in the world. That's part of who I am. My mom is one of those good souls, and
Yes.
so my part of my job is to highlight that, and just to highlight stories that I think are important, that dispel stereotypes, and also to explain very difficult subjects, legal and policy issues, to folks in a way that I think the masses can understand. I've
I
been
love.
very blessed to be very well educated. I've been very blessed to be very well informed. And so, like, part of democracy is, you know, being informed. And so I'm trying to be a liaison for information to so many. And I also teach at Temple University,
Nice.
teach journalism, law, and ethics. So that's my life.
I love that. And, I love, there's lots of levels there, right? That because of your unique set of skills that you are able to recognize the need and the gap, right? That there's ways that lots of journalists don't know how to cover some of the legal crime and court stuff. And because of your set of skills in both worlds, you are the person or one of the people that can help to shape how they think about the covering it, what they say, what they write, all of that. And I think like once again, that's another level of fighting the cause, right? There's so many different ways. You know, for me, I don't believe everybody has to be on the front lines. I believe that there's lots of ways people make impact and difference in ways that sometimes we will never know, but it can be so significant. And I think that that's what you're doing, and then being able to teach and inform others. So you know, I think that's great what you're doing. Um, the other thing that I like to ask is, who would you like to work with or collab with, right? When you think about anyone, anywhere, who would you like to do something with and work with?
Um, I wow. Um, I don't have a specific person in mind, but I have put out the intention to find a really amazing team.
Hmm.
Because I realize like the vision, the things that I really want to accomplish will require the assistance of others.
Yes.
Because the dream is growing too,
Yes.
it's growing so much larger than me. And so like I put out the intention to attract
Yes.
um a very good team of people who we get along, we have differences that are complementary, and but we all share a vision to create good media, you
Nice.
know, and to help further democracy and empower people. So I know that's what I'm looking for. That's what my heart wants. That's what my soul is yearning
Nice.
for. And so I've kind of like opened myself up to that, and I'm hoping that whoever that is, because I don't want it to be I want it because it's like funny, it's like you get the right combination of people
Mm-hmm.
and it's magical.
Yes.
And I've actually experienced a couple places in my life where I've had these magical coming togethers, and we've created such amazing work. And so I'm very hopeful, I'm prayerful that whoever that group is, that we come together and it's soon, because I'm open, I'm looking for that
Yeah.
magic. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. So I will join in with your intentions. I am there as well, and I hope, wish, pray that those things do happen for you because once again the things that you were talking about is impactful, and to have the right people who have similar or aligned vision, that just takes it tenfold, right? That just moves it to a whole nother level. And so I believe that will happen, and will happen hopefully soon, so you can
And I
keep on
hope
that
it
path.
happens for you too,
Thank you.
because you know how good it feels when y'all are in alignment. It's
Yes,
like, because it's like a shared vision. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing.
it
I
is.
just can't wait. And I know it's gonna happen. Like
It is.
I feel
100%.
like it's gonna happen. Yeah.
So, last two questions that I like to ask is, what does mental wellness mean for you?
Mental wellness. Um, that's a good question. Mm. Um, I feel like I'm at a place of mental wellness.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like you're mentally well when you can sit with yourself and be okay. Your thoughts are not agitating you. You're not experiencing anxiety. You can be in silence, right? And it not be like a negative experience.
Hmm.
You don't have to be reading or taking in some media or doing whatever. You can just be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the first time in my life where like I can literally sit. I live right by the water. I can sit
Nice.
on my little patio with a glass of wine in my hand and do nothing. And that's it. I'm
I
just
love it.
able to just be.
I love it, and I could totally hear it from everything that you've been saying and the way you've been saying it. Just a level of like, yeah, I can be at peace, right? Like, and that's a great feeling, and that sometimes we don't have it. So I'm glad that you're there, and you know
Mhm.
what it feels like. And the last question I ask is, what mental wellness advice would you give to your younger self? as early as yesterday or any time before that, what would you say to your younger self?
Um, I guess I would tell my younger self to forgive yourself, Yeah, I would say not forgive yourself, but give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Keep going, but give yourself grace. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time. Um, and yeah, just give
Yeah.
yourself grace.
Yeah. No, that is so important. I think that so many ways that we don't give ourselves grace, and that we realize when we look back, we're like, oh man, I was so hard on myself, or I was just, I I didn't allow myself to be, or to just look at the water and be okay. This has just been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate everything, Cherri, that you've shared, and that you've been willing to share, and the depth and the gems that you've dropped. Just thank you so much for joining me today. And last thing I'll say, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Not really. I guess just, try to find peace in your life. Like, I just feel like a lot of us who are overachievers,
Hmm.
we're kind of like pushed by some feeling of inadequacy in some ways and some desire to achieve to make it to some hill or top of some mountain, and but it's never from a place of peace, and so I just hope more of us um give ourselves grace and then
Hmm.
find a place of peace where we
Yeah.
can exist, you know what I mean?
Totally, 100%, and I love that, and I received that from me, and I encourage others to find peace and give yourself grace. Cherri, thanks again for joining me and for being a part of this conversation today.
Absolutely, thanks for having me, it was fun.
Wow, what an incredible ride we just went on with another great member of the LEAPCAST community. I appreciate you listening and hope you got some tangible value from the episode. Please let us know what you think by leaving a comment, rating, and review. As always, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This is Dr. George James, and I'll see you next time.